down first?
Let's just do the walkthrough first, where we can kind of check out some of the stuff here.
And for the past 20 years, I have been enthusiastically researching the mystery of the Brown Mountain Lights. The Brown Mountain Lights are an absolutely real phenomenon. So when you start digging into Brown Mountain, and you find that, okay, some of these may just be a natural phenomenon, but that doesn't explain the people who claim they've been abducted there. It doesn't explain some of the creature sightings that have taken place there. It doesn't explain many of the conspiracies related to military activity and government involvement. And when people go to Brown Mountain, sometimes they have experiences that are so surreal, so dreamlike, they have difficulty even describing what happened to them. When you start looking at the broader context, you could explain many of these stories by an alien abduction. The military activity, the root of many of the elaborate conspiracies of Brown Mountain, usually have an alien element. Well, we know that the U.S. government has publicly investigated the Brown Mountain Lights at least 3 times throughout history. Twice by the U.S. Geological Survey, once by the Weather Service. So we know that the government for a long time has been aware of the Brown Mountain Lights. Brown Mountain is on national forest land, and if you go to some of the overlooks today, you will see that there are markers that were put in place by the federal government. So the government has long obviously been interested in the Brown Mountain Light. There is a guarded faction around that place. There are mysterious men, you might think of them as men in black or government spooks or whatever, that will pop up and they'll follow you around if you're out there with investigation equipment. The more I started interviewing people, the more I realized when they would open up to me that there was something significant happening here with the military. For one thing, there was a couple I met who owned a cafe in Morganton, and they told me that one day an Army colonel walked into their cafe and he said to them, "I am interested in contracting someone here to provide enough food to feed 400 men a day for 2 months. Every single day, they would drive a couple trucks, big old trucks, up to a service gate. And they would meet 2 MPs, 2 military police at the gate. Those military police would sign the paperwork, take possession of the trucks, and drive them off and say, "Thank you very much." And they never saw where the food was going, and yet they know that for 2 months they fed 400 men per day, and throughout the entire experience they only saw 3 military men. This one hunter was, he told me that he was walking up a service road to find a good hunting spot. So he was about to set up a little area with some of his gear, and all of a sudden he said this Humvee type military vehicle just appeared and blazed by him and almost ran him over. And he thought, man, where could that have come from? This is a dead-end road, and the only thing he could surmise is that it had come out of the ground or from some secret place. If, say, aliens are coming to Brown Mountain and they are using a technology that is plasma-based, then the government would be very, very interested in that relationship and how it could be adapted for our own human technological purposes. And if there is an underground base, it might be because it is studying the same energy fields that the extraterrestrials are also using. There are plenty of government officials who've come out and said, yeah, there are aliens here. I mean, look at these deathbed confessions you get from the guys at the Roswell base. Something is happening here that is beyond just lights on a mountain and a ghost story. Now, what we realized is that when a legitimate Brown Mountain light appeared, there was electromagnetic interference. And this is not something that's caused by flashlights or dirt bikes or four-wheelers or lanterns or whatever. So by using equipment that could pick up that level of interference, we were able to start documenting where the Sirius lights were coming from. Now, the question becomes, are these lights producing the interference? Well, we think they probably are, but that also could be because something bigger is happening in the environment at that time. There may be some type of an alien element there, because when people see UFOs, they talk about electromagnetic interference. They talk about seeing these kinds of strange glowing light forms. Now, I have talked to other people who claim that they have been just a few feet away from one of these balls of light, and they look inside and see a little person. Tommy Hunter was at the 181 Overlook in late August or early September of 1980. I was able to track down around like 9 people that were there at the Overlook that night. So they went up there to see the lights, and they were about to leave, and then all of a sudden somebody gasped, and they looked over and saw these 2 balls of light, and they emerged from the valley and started kind of floating up toward the Overlook, hovering about 3 feet over the ground, and so bright as to be somewhat blinding. Well, when one of these lights came bobbing right up onto the Overlook, everybody went screaming and running in the other direction, except for Mr. Tommy Hunter. And Tommy Hunter, being a curious fella, apparently walked right up to one of these lights, and everybody's screaming at him and telling him, "What are you doing? You're nuts." But he reached out and touched it. He didn't really remember exactly what happened to him, other than he said it felt like he'd stuck his finger in an electrical socket, that he had such a current of electricity that flowed through his body that it jarred him and rattled into his teeth. There's even one account of this terrified family that was speeding down 181 for miles, and one of these balls of light was following their car. And they were sitting in a car watching the mountain, and suddenly this ball of light appeared, and it just sort of floated right up and around the car, and it freaked them out so much that they wanted to get out of there. They didn't like sitting here feeling like sitting ducks as this big sphere of illumination is kind of bobbing around and peeking in. So the guy at the wheel was able to successfully start the car. He backed it up and he pulled out, and the light followed. And he said that he stomped the gas and was speeding on these old windy roads, screeching around the curves, and for several miles this ball kept pace with the car, following right along behind it.